What's up, YouTube? Gen X. I'm pretty much done. As I told you guys before, I've always identified with blue-collar men, considering how I grew up, and even just who I am personality-wise. I know where I fall in regards to white-collar, blue-collar, but, to me, idealistically, the perfect Sunday would be having a barbecue and watching a football game, or a Saturday, uh, washing my truck and taking my daughter to her softball game. That's my swag. So if anything, I identify with the blue collar men of the world. That's just how I get down. Um, but with that being said, I understand where I lie, right? But I've tried to shed light on a lot of the myths about, the quote-unquote blue-collar, hard-hat sort of black men in regards to money, right? What they can and can't do, right? In regards to people making assumptions that you can't be well paid. Hence me talking about, the cats that I know, that one of them is a mechanic, right? And he has his 9 to 5, but then he's doing his stuff on the side, making good money, right? You have your guys in the military. Um, so I've tried to shed light on a whole segment of quality black men that don't really get the attention, right? And it's unfortunate because you look at white America and, the hardworking blue-collar sort of white guy with the tool belt, he's acknowledged, right? He is seen as that hardworking sort of man, or even if he's, a man in the armed forces. You have the women saying, I love a man in a suit, or I love a man in a uniform, right? So we don't even acknowledge our hardworking blue-collar sort of black men, and in other groups, they do, right? They're seen as these sort of family men, sort of, masculine sort of guys, but, um, when it comes to black men, there's no love. So me seeing that, I have to speak on that. Even though I don't necessarily identify with that group, I think it's bullshit considering how I grew up. Considering that I know, a lot of older blue-collar black men that have taught me a lot, right? That have put me up on game. And I've seen them, make all sorts of savvy and smart financial moves. But I can't, I can no longer speak for this group. Not to say that, I don't feel like I'm part of this group or, I'm like, forget them now. But for me, it's just more so I can't be part because of where I fall, right? Whenever I try to speak on where I fall in terms of being college educated and, and being more so white collar, people tend to get offended. They tend to get offended, and to me, it's like, yo, you can't be butthurt about me simply talking about where I fall, right? Just because I'm talking about, educated black men, does not mean, or at least college educated, does not mean somehow that I'm throwing down black men who may not have a degree. I mean, how many of the channels have you actually come on and you've seen black men acknowledge the blue collar right as much as I do? At least give them credit and not try to exclude them. I mean, how many videos have I talked about, black women complaining, and it's kind of like, well, it's bad because you're throwing out a whole bunch of quality men. You're throwing out, the blue-collar men that maybe, they may be making 70, 80K a year, but because, they don't have this sort of prestigious white-collar job, you're throwing them away, right? How many videos have I stated that? Only for me to do a video like I did yesterday. What did I call it? Something about, the educated black man being unique. I forgot what I called it. But only for people to act as if I made certain assumptions. And you completely negated what was in the video. I never talked about being educated, automatically makes you successful, you're balling out of control. There's a lot of stuff that I never said, right? But the simple fact that I'm addressing educated black men or speaking on that exclusively, people feel automatically offended. automatically offended for no reason. You know, and you start getting a whole bunch of comments that aren't even related, right? You know, I'm fully aware that you don't have to have a degree to be successful, even though I rarely find examples of younger black men without a degree being successful, but I'm fully aware that in the past that has happened. In America overall, the way it was set up, you didn't necessarily need to go to college to do well, right? But times have changed. But I'm fully aware of that, right? So, you know, people, like I said, automatically get offended and they automatically start making assumptions that I never said. And you can go back and watch the video and maybe try to get a better understanding of where I was coming from, right? But I don't think a lot of you guys understood where I was coming from, and you took it as if I'm saying that because you're an educated black man and you have a degree, you know, this means that you're just balling out of control, right? And you have all this knowledge and that, you know, you're just this sort of model black man. And I've never really said that. All I'm saying is that I know what category I fall under. But that does not mean that I, you know, don't see the other groups of black men. But when it comes to advocating for both, I can only do so much because of where I lie. And the sad thing is when I talk about educated black men, you have a whole bunch of other people who get instantly offended. And, you know, and I can't really deal with that anymore. So y'all take it easy. God bless.